Cory, we're now a day on into this airplane crash. There's a lot of questions being asked. I think the first thing is, where are the pilots right now, and when does the NTSB speak to them?
Yeah, we understand the pilots are in a hotel here near San Francisco International Airport, and the NTSB has yet to speak to them, and that, of course, is going to be an important part of this, because we don't even know which of the pilots was in control of the plane at the moment of the landing. As I mentioned before, typically we'll have 4 pilots on a plane like this who will have to work alternating shifts over the course of this long flight that all told was probably in the air for more than 12 hours, going from Shanghai to Seoul and then Seoul to San Francisco. So the co-pilot had very little experience. His first landing at SFO ever, very little experience in a 777 plane. A lot of experience flying, however. A pilot with a lot more experience. What they knew and when they knew it, like so many of these stories, was what this is going to come down to.
And on manual controls as well, Cory. Adam Johnson with us. You have been in the brand new 787, is it? The cockpit. There's a lot of people up front on these airplanes, isn't there?
Oh, a lot of people, and at least United Airlines, for its point, on the 787, has not just the captain and the co-pilot, they have what's then called a flight captain, a third person who's sitting there monitoring. He doesn't touch any of the controls. He just makes sure the other 2 guys are doing everything correct. Obviously, they didn't have that on this.
You have your distinction in your reporting. I'm curious, with an international event like this, do the pilots speak to their nation's safety people first?
That is happening.
Or do they speak to the landing place first?
Yes, a very key question. That conversation is happening today. The South Korean Transportation Authority confirms, in fact, that the pilots are speaking to South Korea's own investigators. And curious, because that's happening 24 hours, because they're going to sit down and speak with the NTSB. Tomorrow's meeting is NTSB plus South Korean officials plus the controllers from the control tower plus the airport. So curious that there's the one meeting first that's with the South Korean.
As these investigations continue, there's so much that we don't know yet. But Cory Johnson, there is a lot that we do know now about the moments and seconds leading up to this crash at the airport where you are. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the flight, so it was an unusually clear day. I mean, San Francisco International Airport, known for its cold weather, which I'm experiencing right now, and the fog and so on. But Saturday morning was very clear, very low winds. The flight crashed at 11:27 in the morning. I was actually out on the other side of the bay at that exact moment, and it was a really just a lovely day at that point. But we know that the pilots tried to abort the landing in the seconds before the flight, and that the flight was coming in obviously too low, and according to the NTSB, significantly slower than even the plane reported to the tower, and that contributed to this crash and their inability to correct as they approached the runway.
We know also, Tom and Sarah and Cory, that Asiana Airlines apologized for the incident, saying they're looking into it, certainly. Adam Johnson, Boeing has come out as well with comments, too. What did they say?
Yeah, first of all, as you would expect, Boeing extended its deepest condolences. And here's really the key point. They have sent a technical team on site working under the direction of the NTSB. Jim McNerney, the CEO of Boeing, told me back when he was dealing with the 787, he said, when these sort of things happen, we attack it. We put dozens of people on the case to try to figure out exactly what happened. They know this aircraft inside.
Well, to me, the distinction, Cory, that you mentioned is 137 knots, which is 158 miles an hour, and they were going incredibly slow when they landed. Cory, you're in San Francisco. There's that iconic view out of the Mark Hopkins Hotel, and everybody looks west across the Pacific. Do you make a distinction, being in San Francisco, between flying a U.S. carrier and flying an international carrier, particularly one that's not from the major European countries?
I mean, I think that when we talk about what kind of people were on this flight, it was a Saturday flight, it was a holiday weekend in the U.S. We know that there were a lot of students on the flight, not a lot of business people. A lot that's already been made on social media and so on, that the COO of Facebook almost got on this flight and didn't get on this flight. But I think it's clear, you know, that there are dozens of flights like this that cross every week that go direct from Seoul to San Francisco International. Indeed, this is a more common destination than even direct flights from Seoul to LAX. So it's a common flight indeed here. I don't know that a lot of people make that distinction here. You know, and to Adam's point about the investigation, there's also the engine investigation. These were Pratt & Whitney engines, and those engines apparently are going to go all the way back east and be examined in Connecticut, where they were initially manufactured.
And by the way, we should point out, and this is curious, Tom, yesterday, the CEO of Asiana Airlines, as he was offering his apology, said that at this point, he said, we don't believe there is any mechanical issue with the engine.
Yeah, they came right out and said that.
Yeah, right away. Curious that he would say that without the knowledge of any investigation, but that was a very bold statement.
I would also point out that the 777, Boeing's flagship, one of its flagship products, has a pretty strong safety record.
Yeah, there's only been one other issue involving the 777. This has been an incredibly successful aircraft. Over 1,100 have been made.
And not just the 777, too, but air flying in general is very safe these days. If you compare it, for instance, to riding in a car, in a taxi, deaths, for instance, per 100 million passenger miles. Yeah, this is a chart of the day, really. It shows you that you're 70 times more likely to perish in a car accident than you would in a plane crash. And the vast majority of fatal aircraft accidents were attributed to pilot error and less so to actual mechanical
Well, and
failure.
you also wonder, Tom, if you connect that dot, given the history, most of these accidents, as Scarlett points out, pilot error, right? For Asiana to come out, the CEO, before there's an investigation and say, we don't believe there's a problem with the engines, you can see he's already starting to distance himself from the pilots as if to suggest there was a problem. And there's going to be a full investigation. It's not our position to speculate, nor anybody else's. That's the job of the NTSB. But curious that you can already start to see people positioning to deal with that issue.